How did lipsticks go from this tiny metal case with a push-up lever to a jumbo-sized swivel plastic case? World War II may be the answer.
Once upon a time, there were beauty parades. All the girls needed was youth and culture. But this is war. Today's beauty contests are in the shipyards, on the assembly line.
Now, anytime you discuss World War II beauty, the 1940s, in general, the story goes Hitler hated red lipstick. And because he hated it, women wore it in a sort of defiance and F you to fascism. Now, the thing is, I've seen many World War II documentaries, and in them, there are photos of Hitler's mistress, Eva Braun. She wears lipstick. You can see in the photos that she has on lipstick. So in 1945, when the war was over, Germany lost. Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun themselves, and Lee Miller, the amazing photographer, she goes to Hitler's apartment and takes photos there. There's this famous picture of her in his bathtub. Then she goes to Eva Braun's apartment and she finds her tubes of lipstick. And these lipsticks are none other than a very famous American brand, Elizabeth Arden. What's even more strange about that is that Elizabeth Arden was one of the proponents of these very patriotic red lipstick shades, which I'll get to later in the video. Eva Braun had lipstick, she wore lipstick, and she was Hitler's #1 girl. Hitler believed women's lives should revolve around the 3 Ks: children, kitchen, and church. The Nazis expected women to stay at home and secure the future of the Aryan race. It seems Hitler never publicly remarked about his hatred for lipstick, but there is one account from his secretary. It's in the book Until the Final Hour. Now, this was written in 1947, but it was not actually published until 2002. And here's what she said. In light conversation, Hitler usually preferred trivial and totally non-political subjects. He could tell very charming, witty stories about his own youth, and most of all, he liked a little mocking banter with the ladies. When he noticed the red imprint of Ava's lipstick on her napkin, he began telling us about the ingredients of that item of cosmetics. Do you know what lipstick is made of? Supposedly Frau Speer thought maybe it was aphids. And Eva Braun said she used a French lipstick. Hitler just gave us a pitying smile. If you only knew that in Paris, of all places, lipsticks are made of the fat skimmed off sewage, I'm sure no woman would paint her lips anymore. We knew his tactics from the meat eater conversation. He wanted to put us off something that he couldn't actually forbid us. Apart from Martin Bormann's wife, all the women met their Führer with carefully painted lips. It's pretty clear he did not like lipstick. However, this book was published in 2002, so how could women during the 1940s, during the war time, how could they have worn it in defiance if he had never publicly stated anything about lipstick? Well, let's go back to 1933, and the headline reads, Nazis ban cosmetics. What's so interesting is it's an amazing clickbait title, because if you think of social media, especially YouTube, a clickbait title really gets the views. And at this time, this headline took off like wildfire. There were so many articles printed in different versions on how the Nazis had banned cosmetics for women. Instead of just looking at the title, if you actually read inside of the story, it turns out that there was a place called Breslau, and that is where they were holding these Nazi meetings, and they didn't want women coming to these meetings wearing any paint, powder, lipstick. Now, because this story was repeated so many times, then you start to lose the fine print, the actual story, and it just says, Hitler forbids lipstick. Hitler bans lipstick. And I think American women remembered this for many years to come. Now, even though only a month later, this whole story would be recanted and said to be preposterous, and one article even said it was a myth, I think it was too late. People had seen that Nazis banned cosmetics. So we do know cosmetics were actually sold in Germany even during World War II. There are articles in magazines, the German magazines, and I actually have a compact here. This is by the brand Casana Cosmetics. So we do know cosmetics were actually sold in Germany even during World War II. If you want to imagine Germany during, say, the 1920s, that jazz era, think of the movie Cabaret.
Don't dab your eye, mine hair, or wonder why mine hair.
And in that film, there are many scenes of like Liza Minnelli smoking, and that is one thing the Nazis were very against. And so far to say that they banned women from smoking publicly. I don't think that you could actually ban a woman, but supposedly there were even signs in restaurants that would say, we ask women not to smoke publicly. So crazy. In one article, it actually talks about how the Nazis didn't ban cosmetics per se, but they just looked at it as old-fashioned, that people who were still doing this paint and powder of the jazz era, the new young generation, they wanted to be natural. They were not into this. And this is nothing new. We see this through every decade. There is this point where there's a lot of makeup, statement makeup, and then a rejection of that ideal, and then it's natural. If we just think about modern times, the 2016 beauty guru era, the heavy makeup, and then you go into the 2020s clean girl era.
If it's wrong to let someone pay just a little kiss for I could say, let a lady confess I wanna be bad.
Okay, we know this information now. Going back to 1933. Now let's skip a decade later into the 1940s. Did women wear red lipstick in defiance? I really only found 2 articles that sort of mentioned this, and this seems to be an overall arching reason that women wore lipstick. They wore it for morale. But this one article is the only time I ever see someone mention that Hitler hated makeup, so we should wear it. This article is really interesting because this bishop, again, a man who hates cosmetics, this bishop thinks that it is not necessary for morale for women to have nail polish, lipstick, rouge. He thinks it's ridiculous. Women don't need makeup for morale. But all the movie stars come out and they go against him. They literally are like, we need it, we want it, and it's our right to have it. And how about you not shave? How about you go without shaving? Which he said yes, he would do it. That's how much he hated makeup. In it, Joan Bennett says, didn't Hitler and Mussolini take cosmetics away from their women? And isn't that why their soldiers preferred death or capture to going back home? Isn't there enough damage being done to the maps of the world without moving in on the women too? Why tone our women down to a dull gray just because they're working in a war plant? If a girl feels she's well groomed, she'll do a better job. Actress Irene Dunn said, the shock of seeing a million women without any makeup probably would be a worse blow to morale than a direct bomb hit. Now this is in 1943, this article, so this is an actual decade after the headlines, Nazis ban cosmetics. So it's interesting, Joan Bennett does say, didn't Hitler and Mussolini take women's makeup away from them? So I'm telling you, they remembered those headlines. But did they really wear it in defiance? I mean, again, this story kind of, but mainly mentions morale. If anything, they're kind of defiant against the bishop for trying to say they don't need makeup. Now, there's also this article in the UK where they say, lick Hitler with lipstick. During this time, the Blitz was happening, so Germany was dropping bombs over England, and there were nurses who would still wear their lipstick, or women who were running to safety, to a shelter, would quickly put on their lipstick before they ran out the door. It's like to say, you haven't beat us, Germany, you haven't got us, Hitler. So that was a whole lick Hitler with lipstick. But I do want to get deeper into morale because this word is mentioned a lot, but specifically in this particular article, morale is a woman's business. Every time you listen to war news on the radio, you think, how can I do more to help? You go to first aid classes, you spend hours at the Red Cross, and still, you feel a little apologetic because you're only a woman. You even feel guilty when you take time off for feminine things like buying a new hat or getting your hair done. But have you forgotten that small, terribly important word, morale? Have you forgotten that morale is a woman's business now more than ever? The way you look affects so many people around you. Your family, your friends, even strangers who pass you on the street. To them, a woman's beauty stands for courage, serenity, a gallant heart. All the things that men need so desperately these days. So the time spent in your favorite beauty salon every week isn't selfish or frivolous. It's part of your job of morale. It's a woman's way of saying, we won't be beaten. Is it morale or another M word? Marketing. Beauty was big business during the war, especially in America. And the slogan of the 1940s during the war was beauty is your duty. From the salons to cosmetics to fashion, no matter what, you better look good for those boys who are fighting overseas. They need to know they have something beautiful waiting at home. Now keep in mind, 350,000 women joined the military. during World War II. And millions of women took over men's jobs at factories. They were working in war plants. They were making airplanes, fixing cars. They were doing generally what a man's job was during that time.
Instead of cutting out dresses, this woman stamps out the patterns of airplane parts.
Now it's got that feminine touch you've heard about. Yes, sir. These gals believe in preparedness, all right.
So they're working a full-time job, but they also have kids at home they have to take care of. They also have the cleaning and the cooking, and now they have to be beautiful on top of it all. You better have your hair done, your nails done, your cheeks rouged, and you better wear lipstick and make sure it's red, because red is patriotic, right? Let's take a look at some red lipsticks that were produced during World War II. We have Victory Red by Elizabeth Arden, Montezuma Red by Elizabeth Arden, and Winged Victory, also by Elizabeth Arden. Crimson Glory by Dorothy Gray, Emblem Red by Dewberry, Patriot Red by Louis Philippe, Auxiliary Red by Cyclax. Another Victory Red, this one by Harriet Hubbard Ayers, although Elizabeth Arden did create it first. We have Revlon's Bright Forecast, Revlon's Rosy Future, Helena Rubinstein Regimental Red, Tussie Fighting Red, Tussie Jeep Red, Tussie Commando Red, Don Juan Military Red, and Cody Flying Colors. And that's just the ones that I found. I have no idea how many more actually exist out there, but there were a lot of patriotic reds created during World War II. I do have a Victory Red lipstick here by Elizabeth Arden. This seemed to be the first of the patriotic bunch. It was launched in 1941. So I thought I'd show you the color here. It's a very vibrant, true red. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these tubes, they don't roll up anymore. They get stuck. So I'm just gonna take a spatula and we're gonna do a little swatch. So you can see Victory Red. This is the color Victory Red. It is an absolutely gorgeous red color. Besame came out with Victory Red as well. I don't know if this still exists, but I thought it was pretty close. So I'll just do a little swatch of that. You can see it's a little touch orange compared to the Victory Red, the original. I have a mini Pat McGrath Elson, which is like the same size of the original Victory Red tube. Okay, I just put it down here so you can see. Even that one doesn't get quite as vibrant. This is one of my favorite matte red lipsticks. It's from the brand Mob, and it's called M67. Now, let's see, we'll put it right above, right on the top. The original Victory Red, here is the Mob color, and of course you have the Elson. There really weren't that many others that even got even a little bit close to it because it is such a vibrant red. Now, I mentioned in the beginning of the video how we went from these small metal cases, even like this, the Victory Red, it's super heavy, completely metal case. And we go from these metal cases to now we have plastic. So in 1942, the government asked that the metal that you have be donated to the war effort. And this even included lipstick tubes. In this article, it says they'll be turned over to the government and be converted into navigation instruments, planes, and other war materials. Every ounce counts. Also in 1942, the very clever Helena Rubinstein, she told women, come to the salon, turn in your lipsticks, and anyone who does gets 15 cents towards any purchase at the Helena Rubinstein salon. I mean, it's genius, but again, marketing. So we see the change from metal to cardboard and eventually plastic. At that time, they used something called Bakelite, which was a form of plastic, but a little more fragile. And we see lipsticks go from small to what they refer to as jumbo sized. We also see a lot of articles that are pushing for refills. So it's fine if you want to save your metal container, save one, but buy the refill that goes inside. And this actually did not take off very well during the 1940s, but refills in the 1950s and 1960s, that's when we see that happening a lot more. And even today in modern times, refills have not really caught on. And here are some examples of Elizabeth Arden's Victory Red. At first, she launches it in a metal case, but then it came out in 1941, but then in 1942, as they needed the metal for the war, she launched it in a cardboard and Bakelite case. It's funny too, is some complained about the cardboard. Those cardboard lipstick cases they are making now to conserve metal are just fine for the first week or so, but then the pusher-upper gets off the track. I have to carry tweezers in my coin purse to pull the lipstick up out of the cardboard case now. So I do have this cardboard container from the 1940s, and this is the Victory Red lipstick. So you can see the difference here. This is what they would have considered jumbo size. And this is it compared with modern lipsticks today. So it's jumbo sized. Now in 1945, the end of the war, metal is back. Fifi, throw away that squashed cardboard lipstick case and the plastic one with the exploded spring. Metal containers will be back in time for Christmas. But clearly brands must have realized that they could make a product cheaper and still sell it, which is probably why we have plastic today. And now I want to share with you some World War II sweetheart compacts. First off, a lot of products were very patriotic. You see tons of red, white, and blue. I love this container. Inside this one, you have your powder, your lipstick, and your rouge. And you could buy refills for this plastic container. Every type of military branch of service is represented in these military hats. I think I have all of them. Now, you can actually find this one on eBay. And what's great about this is that it was a memento. It was sent to the girl from the man fighting overseas. That means most of them were never used because it was like they would just keep it in safekeeping. Inside you have your mirror and your powder puff. You would put your powder in there. It's a powder compact. Isn't that cute? Now you find a lot of compacts like this. Defend your country. Uncle Sam. You've got army compacts. Now these are all metal, but I believe these did come out during World War II. I will have to check. We have more hats. We have a keychain hat that is like a drill sergeant's hat. And inside, you lift off the top of the hat and there is your powder puff. You have a little mirror. You put your powder inside there. We have a combat helmet. And in the bottom of this, these ones seem to be made of metal. In the bottom, you open the mechanism and you have a mirror. I believe this is from 1940s, although looking at the puff, this could have been a World War I compact because you've got the little puff here and the powder would go right inside there. There's your mirror. Here's a silver hat. I do have a few boxes as well. This one here, a jumbo-sized hat. And this one is also made of metal. Your mirror would have been on top, the Victory Vanity. And this one, of course, you guessed it, another hat, but this one is actually made of glass. But what's even more special about this one, besides it having the puff, is it happened to have a newspaper article inside from 1943. So I imagine the man who sent his sweetheart this particular compact, maybe this story is about him. It says Army Captain, one of those who want to purchase fills. It's not specifically ripped in that part, but that seems to be the only thing that mentions an Army Captain. So it might be from him, which I think makes it even more special. Now in 1942, the government also asked for women's stockings to be donated to the war effort because the silk in particular were made for gunpowder bags. This was a loss for the ladies, but a big win for cosmetic firms because this is when liquid stockings take off. This is one of my favorite products to collect. This one is Toots leg makeup. Actually, I have two Toots. Hey Toots. There's a lot of articles, of course, from none other than Elizabeth Arden. You have the Elizabeth Arden Velva leg film. We have Mavis liquid hose, sheer leg makeup. Honestly, I have so many of these bottles, so I'll just put up how I display them on the screen. It is definitely one of my favorite things to collect, just knowing that if women couldn't have their stockings, they could use makeup to make it look like they had on stockings. And this had never been created before, at least that I could find, until the 1940s. This was really a new invention, and we do still use body makeup today. Now in this 2020 article here, it claims that Marines had a mandatory lipstick called Montezuma Red. Let's investigate. As I mentioned, Elizabeth Arden came out with Montezuma Red. This launched in 1944. Even when you look at the advertisements, it says inspired by the Marines. And the story goes, supposedly in the Elizabeth Arden book, she had seen someone walk in and they had a red lipstick on with their uniform, and she came over the banister and was like, that lipstick doesn't match. I have a solution. It's a little too good to be true, supposedly. If you go through other articles, she was inspired by the memorandum because there was a list of good grooming habits for anyone who was a Marine. And this still exists today. Anyone that is in the military has their sort of do's and don'ts, what they're allowed and not allowed to wear. Now in the Marines handbook, here it says, for grooming, lipstick, if worn, shall harmonize with the color of the winter service capcord and shall be neatly and thinly applied. They go into rouge, mascara, hair tints. It should be inconspicuous. So I think Elizabeth Arden was inspired by this memorandum, and then she launched the Montezuma Red lipstick to match the Montezuma Red cord on the cap, as you can see here. So there is some questioning of whether, did she have a contract with the government, with the Marines? I think she did, but not to make red lipstick, because red lipstick is a non-essential. She did, however, create first aid kits. There are a tourniquet and scissors kit, and you can see clearly Elizabeth Arden on the tag. So I do think that she served a patriotic duty. She was a Canadian woman who turned American and had this incredible business. For many years to come, Elizabeth Arden still exists today. If anything, she did open some salons on the service bases, so probably you could buy Montezuma Red there. They also say that she sent like 1,000 tubes to Marine women. So did she have some ties with the Marines as far as a contract? I think so with the first aid kits, but I don't think it was for Montezuma Red lipstick. I think, again, she was a marketing genius. Now, at the end of all of this, we have talked about war. And beauty may seem so trivial as a discussion when it comes to war. During World War II, over 50 million people lost their lives. 50 million! And millions of them were completely innocent. They had nothing to do with fighting in the war. They were innocent men, women, and children.
As this program is being performed in a Hollywood studio, a master recording is made from which transcripts will be shipped to Army and government-operated stations all over the world. Here's old General Trivia in person, your commanding officer of this command performance, your old sidekick, and Chief Scout of the Wolf Patrol, Bob Hope.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Howdy do, fellas. This is Bob. Command Performance Hope, telling each Nazi that's in Russia today that Crimea doesn't pay. Fellas, one of your favorite combinations. Judy Garland singing Over the Rainbow. Somewhere over the rainbow.
I found this extract of a diary from Lieutenant Colonel Mervyn Willer Gonen, and this is from May 23rd, 1945. After the war, he is assigned to the concentration camp Bergen-Belsen. In it he says, I can give no adequate description of the horror camp in which my men and myself were to spend the next month of our lives. It took a little time to get used to seeing men, women, and children collapse as you walked by them. One had to get used early to the idea that individuals just didn't count. It was shortly after the British Red Cross arrived, though it may have no connection, that a very large quantity of lipstick arrived. This was not at all what we men wanted. We were screaming for hundreds and thousands of other things, and I don't know who asked for lipstick. I wish so much that I could discover who did it. It was the action of genius, sheer, unadulterated brilliance. I believe nothing did more for those internees than the lipstick. Women lay in bed with no sheets and no nightie, but with scarlet red lips. You saw them wandering about with nothing but a blanket over their shoulders, but with these scarlet red lips. I saw a woman dead on the post-mortem table, and clutched in her hand was a piece of lipstick. At least someone had done something to make them individuals again. They were someone, no longer merely a number tattooed on their arm. At least they could take an interest in their appearance. That lipstick started to give them back their humanity. I only have one thing left to say. Long live lipstick.
if happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh,